What's off about that Big Ben? On the right there, that Big Ben doesn't. The proportions of that doesn't look right. Is the clock too small, or is the spire too big? Something's not right about that Big Ben. Something's not right about that Big Ben. I'm not happy about that Big Ben. Okay. I'm being pedantic. On the left, bottom left corner, South Bank, down there, that's pretty accurate actually. They've done that quite well. Okay, here we go. I'm just checking my overlay is correct. Yes, it is. We went back from Peckham. London! Not old! It's almost 10 o'clock in the morning, local time. I'm in a pub in Holborn with a large coffee and a phone book in front of me. You arrive in London and go to Holborn? It's pretty dead. It's mind you, she's like a banking person. She's gone to the most business district-y kind of place she could go to. To be fair, where I live is very business, it's very city, it's very rich banker, but it's also very pubs and socialising and drinks after work and going, oh, really loud because you're all loaded and stoked about it. But Holborn is just, people do work and then go somewhere else to go, because they're rich. So she's gone to a really boring part of London, a boring functional part of London, to read a phone book. French know to have a good time. Anyway, yesterday when the train got in, I had scurried to the underground without a backward glance. I had the feeling that several people were seeking me out in the crowd, but I don't know if it was my paranoia at work or if Ava really did have henchmen ready on the station platform to intercept the record. Whatever the case, I managed to jump onto a train without confrontation. Considering the circumstances, it was probably risky to stay close to the station, so I made a journey to a little hotel that I'd stayed in for a conference. Oh, that explains it. Organised my employees at the bank last spring. That's why she went to Holborn, because it's where bankers went to talk about banking. After my difficult day, which had ended with me crossing London, constantly checking over my shoulder to be sure I wasn't being followed, I decided to get an early night. Which is why I find myself at a relatively early hour making a list of the city's record stores with the hope that someone will be able to help me find Ulysses Trail again. I take a mouthful of my cooling coffee, glancing at my handbag. The room that I'd booked in didn't have a safe, so I brought the record with me, not daring to trust it to the reception desk. I turned the page of the phone book, continuing my selection. To avoid spending too much time travelling, I tried to restrict myself to the Mayfair and Covent Garden areas, which have the advantage of being central and being part of the supposedly trendy districts. Shoreditch. Should have gone to Shoreditch as well. Shoreditch is very trendy and it's going to have a lot of vinyl and people that know about vinyl. And everyone's rich again. You have to be rich to live in Shoreditch. There's no point making a list as long as my arm. 3 well-chosen record stores should be enough for me to find answers to my questions. And if none of them can help me, I'm pretty sure that at least one of them will be able to point me in the direction of a colleague who may know more. Shoreditch used to be rough as shit and just where poor people lived. And then trendy people went there and went, oh, I like it here. It's so cool and retro. And then rich trendy people came because their trendy friends were there. And then just rich people came because, oh, look, it's so edgy. Look at these edgy poor people. But they were the rich trendy people. They weren't edgy poor people. And then the poor people are like, excuse me, I can't afford to live here anymore. But the bagels are awesome. Record store owners are like big cats. Each one has their own hunting ground, but they often quench their thirst at the same watering hole. Of course, I began by checking the addresses of Alan O'Reilly's store, Patricia's friend. His store, Yard Sale Records, is on Carnaby Street. The road is well known for being crammed with clothes and thrift stores. I should be able to buy myself a few clothes there without breaking the bank. No, Carnaby Street is not known for having cheap clothes. Carnaby Street is known for being expensive. Thrift stores on Carnaby Street. There's a pound shop there as well, is there? With the disappearance of my case, I had to resign myself to work. Mind you, she's a banker. When she's talking about... Sorry. She's a bank... I have to keep thinking she's a banker. When she's talking about something being cheap, it's not the same as when I talk about something being cheap. Cheap for a banker. Okay. Okay, I'll let that go then. Thrift store for a banker. Carnaby fucking Street. With the disappearance of my case, I had to resign myself to wearing yesterday's clothes, which have already been through the clammy filth of the subways of 2 cities and a train journey, all of which prompts me to start the day with a bit of shopping. That's a lovely picture, but Big Ben looks wrong. Big Ben looks wrong. It really feels like the proportions are wrong. Okay. Oh, I think no, maybe the bridge is okay. Am I thinking of a different bridge? Maybe, I'm thinking of the bridge that you would be looking at that bridge from. That, yes. I'm like, that bridge isn't right either. No, this picture is from where I would be crossing. So that's why it doesn't look like the bridge I cross, because I'm standing on it to look here. Okay. Well, by that case, that South Bank is wrong, because that South Bank isn't right. That South Bank is what you see when you're looking at my bridge that I'm on. Oh, I'm moving on. Sorry. I'm nitpicking a piece of watercolour from a game. I'm sorry. Okay, when I got up this morning after that setback, giving up my search and going back to Bordeaux certainly crossed my mind. But I quickly changed my mind. After all, my apartment had been searched before I left. If I give up now, it's only a matter of time before someone manages to steal the record from me. And I need to know what's happened to Ulysses. Not to mention that I still intend to learn how to use the record to return to my reality. Even if the people I've spoken to up to now haven't given me much hope of success in that particular venture. I turn back to the phone book. I add Strawberry Fields Record Store to my list. The store claims to be the oldest and most psychedelic in the city since 1966. In other words, since the great days of swinging London. Considering the age of the stores, I imagine there's a strong possibility that Ulysses has been there. If it's called Strawberry Fields and it's from 1966, then they're time travellers, because Strawberry Fields was not until 1967. I'm just saying, they got the year wrong. And to finish a little further away in Mayfair, Sidecar Vinyls is specialised in second-hand records with an advert that says True Rock and Roll Garage and 60s. I gulp down the rest of my coffee, pay my bill at the bar, as is customary in this side of the channel, and then I head west along New Oxford Street. Oh, I'm like, what are you talking about? She's in a pub. She's drinking coffee in a pub. It depends. It's not customary. You pay when you buy it. I'm not 100% sure where she is. It's not customary to have your drink and then go and pay in a bar. Maybe she's at a rich people's bar and I'm talking about a pub. Maybe that's the difference. The sky is overcast but not threatening rain. Oh, they've got the bus right. They didn't do an old-fashioned bus. Is that an Avatar poster? I decide the walk will do me good, especially as Carnaby Street is only a half hour away on foot as far as I recall. On the way I spot a Marks and Spencer's that I come across. To deal with my most pressing needs, I buy a small travel bag and throw in some toiletries, underwear and a few pairs of warm tights to combat the hostile chill of the British fall. With the prices in mind, I tried to stick to strictly necessary. Even if theoretically this London escapade would be erased when I listen to the record again, it would be annoying to run short of funds before that. Quarter of an hour later, I'm in Carnaby Street. If funds are short, go to Primark, because Marks and Spencer's is quite middle class expensive. I begin as planned by visiting a few thrift stores. They're not thrift stores. Recreating a wardrobe from nothing, even a basic one, seems like an almost impossible task which should easily take all day. So I try not to get distracted and to focus on the basics. I remember Patricia's remark the evening before and make sure I'm not dressed in a too professional style. In the end, I have a few tops that can be worn anywhere and a turtleneck sweater, 2 pairs of faded jeans and a short skirt. I don't know if I'll have the chance to wear it, but I can't resist a multicoloured print, short and tailored dress. It's probably not wise, but I think I can allow myself one impulse buy after all. That should be enough for a few days. As if my wanderings take me to another country again, at least I'll be travelling light. I use the store fitting room to change and slip my dirty clothes into the pocket of my travel bag. Instantly I feel much better with clean clothes. I look the same, it's almost midday. Is that I look at the time? I look the same. I decide that I spent enough time on provisions, it's time to focus on my main reason for coming here. When I get to Yard Sale Records, the store is plunged in darkness. A notice taped to the door window tells me, handwritten capital letters, won't open until late, come back later. Sorry, not sorry, Alan. Too bad, I'll just have to come back later today. Maybe Patricia's friend will have decided to get out of bed by then. Water sidecar. Sidecar Vinyls looks like a garage transformed into a record store. There are 2 Harley Davidsons parked near the entrance that I'm obliged to squeeze past, straddling some boxes of records to get to the counter, which stretches across the back wall. The back of the store is windowless, and the cold light of the neon tubes creates a surprisingly sterile atmosphere. A small group of leather-clad people huddle around the bar with bottles and cans of beer in their hands. I'm asking myself what I'm doing here when the person who I'm supposed will be the owner, a middle-aged man with a moustache wearing a leather jacket with a Motorhead t-shirt stretched across his round belly, urges me not to be scared and come closer, all with a barely disguised French accent. I decide to answer him in the language of Molière. Bonjour, vous parlez français? The guy seems caught off guard and starts to laugh after a moment of hesitation. He turns to the group and says in English on their behalf, "Hey guys, hello to Froggy." They turn to look at me and I hear a chorus of hello along with a few bonjour mademoiselles from the bolder ones. Excuse the weirdos, it's meeting day for the Mayfair Motor Club, which I'm a member of. He holds out a hand, I shake it. Didier, nice to meet you. Tell me, what brings you here? I don't suppose you're here to discuss chokes and stroke volumes. I can't imagine Ulysses in this territory. There's very little chance that I'll get any useful information, but now that I'm here, I figure that I might as well ask a few questions. I'm looking for a friend who was researching a record. I know he came to London, so I'm checking some of the record stores in case someone's seen him. He's a record store owner too. Oh, you know, as far as I'm concerned, records pay the bills. Harleys are my real passion. Hello, what you doing, Topanga? What you doing? When I cleaned the cage out, I took the cushion out that Remy and Rogue had been using all week and I just put it on the floor out of the way. Topanga is standing on it, sniffing it, going, "This smells of a boy. I can smell a boy guinea pig." Where are you gone? You under the sofa now? Good girl. Okay, as far as I know, yeah, Harley's a real passion for me with that. And I'd need a bit more info. What's your mate's name? Ulysses, brown curly hair, dark skin, glasses. Didier shakes his head. No, sorry, doesn't ring any bells. And the record he's researching? It's an acetate 7-inch white label. Didier smiles and lets out a triumphant, thundering, "Aha!" And you're going to tell me that you can't describe the music that's on it, aren't you? Yeah, that's right. I've heard about that record. I've got an old pal who's been looking for it for years. Hadn't considered this possibility. Could it be someone I've already met? I could play the innocent and try to learn more. I could also be tough and shut down any attempts at negotiation. Ah, really? Who's that? Maybe I've already met them. Yeah, most likely. He's obsessed by that record. He thinks that listening to it will literally change his life. His name's Jean-Luc, but he calls himself Eddie Black. Ring any bells? Seeing my face, Didier immediately realises that yes, it does ring a bell. Ah, hell, I hope he wasn't too crass with you. I promise you, he's a lovely guy, but as I said, he's obsessed by the record. I can't actually see that bottom one. What's the bottom one say? I don't really know what to think. Well, we'll pick that one. I don't really know what to think, to be honest. On one hand, he behaved like someone who was up to something. On the other hand, I don't have any real reason to accuse him of anything. I understand that maybe the circumstances of your meeting weren't ideal, but knowing Jean-Luc, I'm sure it was mostly awkwardness. We've known each other since we were kids, us two. I swear on my life he's a good guy. If you would let him listen to the record. It's not out of the question. If that makes him go away, then maybe. Would that erase her from existence? Or mean like 3 weeks ago she got killed in a natural disaster? That's weird. It's not out of the question. Okay, they got a flower for that. I don't know. I need to think about it. I understand. Are you staying a few days in London? That depends. The shortest time possible. I'm going to leave as soon as I find a new lead, unless I find Ulysses here in London. In any case, I don't plan to stay here long. I understand. Can I get in touch with you? Do you have a cell phone number? Yes, but I don't have a long distance service. Oh yeah. We'll give that a miss. That'll cost me a fortune. In any case, you know where to find me. Unless, would you be okay with telling me which hotel you're staying in? I hesitate. Absolutely not. You don't do that. Anyway, even not with this circumstances. On the other hand, I don't know if I can trust this guy enough to give him the address of my hotel. On the other hand, maybe Eddie Black, Jean-Luc, is truly harmless and perhaps he has some useful information for me about the record. Am I truly ready to take the risk? Yeah, I don't fucking care. No, I'm sorry, I don't trust you enough to give you the address. I understand. Didier grabs a notebook and a pencil. Listen, to make it easy, I'll give you my number. Either drop by here or give me a buzz tomorrow, okay? Knowing Jean-Luc, he'll jump on the first train. Can I count on you? I nod. And sincerely hope I won't regret it. Didier lifts his right hand, 3 fingers raised and the pinky bent. Scout's honour. Then he turns to the group of bikers and tells them to drink to my health. I am gratified by the thundering cheers from the assembly. I give them a wave and then clamber back between the records and the motorbikes to find the exit. Once in the street, I walk quickly away from the store, hoping that I've made the right choice. Leave it till last. There's no point going back and it's still closed. Stuck between a bookstore and a pub, a faded old wooden facade of Strawberry Fields record store exudes character. The store is very well located on a touristy little pedestrian street. When I push open the door, my nostrils are assaulted by the sense of incense and patchouli. The interior, which is lit by a few floor lamps, is long and narrow with tiers of records along each side. This is what an English records shop looks like. This is what I understand an English record shop is. Just this. This size as well, really small. And just that. It's not fancy at all. Not posters, not listening rooms, not people. A side of Forever Change plays at a volume as subdued as the lighting. Rare records are displayed along the walls high up with prices best described as exorbitant. To tell the truth, I feel more like I've walked into a museum than a shop. Once my eyes have become accustomed to the gloom, I make out behind the counter an old man with half-moon glasses, long white hair, and a beard just as white and just as long. He's reading a battered paperback copy of the collected works of Allen Ginsberg. A roll-up burns at the corner of his mouth. I approach the counter and venture a shy hello. I have a strong feeling that I'm disturbing him. The old man doesn't even glance at me. I try a second louder hello with the same "Gwen's coming," the man mutters into his beard. I'm seriously considering leaving when the bead curtains at the back of the shop separate with a jingle. A young woman with long blonde hair and welcoming smile appears. Are we going to be a lesbian with her too? Gwen, sorry for taking so long. I was just feeding Rob's cats. Can I help you? Either I can ask if she knows Ulysses or I can bring up the record, hopefully without revealing too much. I could also decide that I'm wasting my time, make something up and then slip away. Ask about Ulysses. May sound a bit odd to you, but I'm looking for a friend of mine, a record store owner, Ulysses. Does that ring any bells? Rob lifts his eyes from the book and stares at me. Long brown curly hair, dark-skinned, glasses. He would have been in London a few months ago. You know, there are a lot of record collectors. I don't know all of them. She turns to the old man. How about you, Rob? Ring any bells? Rob relights his cigarette and takes a deep drag. It's at that moment that I realise from the characteristic smell of the smoke he exhales that his roll-up contains more than just tobacco. No, sorry, doesn't ring any bells. We have a lot of people passing through the shop and it's a pretty touristy area, you know. Usually it's Gwen who takes care of the customers. If she doesn't remember your friend, I doubt I could help. My memory isn't what it was. As if to prove his words, Rob takes another deep pull on his joint and goes back to his book. Gwen shrugs, looking sorry. Are you sure? He specialises in psychedelic music. I'd be surprised if you didn't know him. He might have had a record to appraise with him, an acetate 7-inch white label. Really, it doesn't strike a chord? Oh yes, you should have said. Actually, someone did come by with a record like that. Gwen turns to Rob. It was in September. You were at Stonehenge with your hippie friends. To tell the truth, I'd completely forgotten about it. As Rob said, we have so many people coming through. And then the weirdos who think they're sitting on a gold mine and try to flog us a busted up umpteenth re-release of Sgt. Pepper. There are shitloads of them. He was looking for information about his record, but what was weird was that he refused to put it on the record player. He told me it was the type of thing, if you have to ask to listen to it, you can't help me. So, well, I couldn't do much for him. Rob puts his book down on the counter, crushes out his roach and gets out of the chair. His lethargy seems to dissipate instantly. Wait a sec, you're telling me that someone came to the shop with Crowley's legendary recording and you let him leave? Gwen blushes and stammers an excuse. How was I supposed to know it was worth something? Rob turns to me and gazes at me intently. Do you know where the record is? I can give you a good price. It's not for sale. I'm sorry, it's not for sale. Ah, so it's you who actually has it, is it? Do you have it with you? Would you show it to me? I realise I've probably spoken too fast. I really should be careful with this information. I've already got enough people after me. No, sorry again. Ah, well, from the sound of your voice, I don't see the point of insisting, but if there comes a time when you do want to part with it, don't hesitate to come back to me, alright? My offer stands. I guarantee I'll give you a very good price. Wait a minute, you said that it's Crowley's recording, right? There are plenty of stories going round. That's just the one that seems the most plausible to me. And if it's the one that fits best with the supposed powers of people claim the record has, I've had this shop since the 60s. I've seen generations of musicians. That recording comes up in conversation pretty often. As a record collector, I've always dreamed of getting my hands on it, if it really does exist. Tell me about the powers. Rob shrugs. Most of it's cock and bull stories. I've heard all sorts. Some people claim it's an amazing psychedelic trip, better than listening to the second disc of Electric Ladyland on Sandoz. Others say they know someone who listened to the record and that person had met God or aliens or leprechauns or whatever. To tell the truth, it's the historical value that interests me. It's almost 40 years in the job. I've seen quite a few gems. Test pressings of Airplane, complete collection of originals from the Vertigo label, a factory sealed copy of Wegner's Tarot, But that record is the holy grail of record collectors. One last question. If you were looking for an information about that recording, who would you ask? Rob thinks for a moment. Not really sure. What about your old mate Art? Gwen turns to me. When he comes by the shop, you can't stop the two of them. I think he's the only person I know who's more rock history buff than Stoney. Hearing the nickname Stoney, Rob throws a murderous glance at Gwen, who seems to either not notice or not care. The only problem is that Art doesn't live in London anymore. When house prices went up, he moved to Scotland. Art, could you give me his full name, please? Arthur Pullman. He worked for the BBC on the radio. I realise that this is probably the Putman Enzo mentioned. As for his address, have we got it written down somewhere, Gwen? Gwen shrugs. I can look in the papers, but I can't promise anything. I've got plenty of time. That would be very kind of you. I'll do it right now. It might take a bit of time though. If you saw the mess at the back of the shop, that's okay, I've got plenty of time. As she's about to go in the back of the store, Rob puts his hand on her shoulder to stop her. Hey, this is a record shop, not a detective agency. Sorry, but if you're not here to buy... I understand, sorry, I won't bother you anymore. Thanks so much for all your help. Gwen gives me a little wave and I leave the store. There are light movements where I step back into Alan's store this time. A few loafers loiter among the boxes while a young girl focused on her listening headphones firmly in place moves the needle back and forth on a record player in one of the booths. The background music is folk, a little odd yet inspired, topped with a husky voice which murmurs in Spanish. The boxes seem to contain quite a lot of new releases, small presses of alternative bands. If they have a second-hand section, I don't know where it could be, which isn't exactly a good sign for my search. Behind the counter, the two sales clerks seem to be arguing. I move closer. Just because we've opened up doesn't mean you can subject us to your wishy-washy folk music. It's way too late in the day for this. Right, Beth. First, it's not wishy-washy folk music. It's the latest record from Devana Banha and new import we just got in. And second, the guy's a genius. And Alan, once again, forgot to put his alarm on. So could we say that it still counts as the morning, right? Fine then. But I get to choose the next record. Deal? Deal, as long as it's not your pseudo-feminist second-rate Sonic Youth. Slater Kinney, second-rate Sonic Youth, it's the rock record of the year. Well, either it's that or the new Franz Ferdinand, then nobody wins. We've been listening to it on repeat for the last month. We'll sell 3 copies every time I play it, Gary. Gary, do you like being able to play your rent at the end of the month? Excuse me? Beth turns to me, beaming. Oh, sorry, excuse me. I had to interrupt my work for reasons of cultural diversions with my colleague, but he'll keep... The colleague rolls his eyes. What can I do for you? I'm looking for an Alan O'Reilly. What's it about? If it's about an unpaid bill or something like that, it'd be better to come back tomorrow. I'm not sure the boss is in the right state. Oh no, one of his friends sent me. Ah, I see. It's about a rare record. Acetate, 7-inch white label. Does that ring any bells? Well, I know what an acetate is, but I need a bit more detail. Do you know the artist, the name of the track? Beth clearly has no idea what I'm talking about. I'm about to give up when the other employee, Garrett, comes over. Maybe we should send her to see the boss. Do you reckon? I'm not sure Alan's functioning well enough for any conversation longer than 3 words. Johnny! I am going to pause to shout at Johnny. Lovely Johnny Starlight. There we go. And I can pause as well to have a drink. They have just gone to London and I am nitpicking every detail that they're getting wrong about London. I'm having a whale of a time. So, Big Ben, something's wrong. The proportions are wrong. No, that's not what's on that street. Who's running up and down? Is that you, Remy? Are you running? It must be. No, it's got to be road. Remy doesn't run. Remy doesn't run. Okay. I overheard what you were saying. Alan was talking about that record not long ago with the geezer who came by the shop a few times, you know? Garrett turns to me. He was French too. Dark hair, dark skin, glasses? That's the one. He had an unusual name. Sounded like James Joyce's book Ulysses. That's how I've been pronouncing it! Garrett says the name English style, pronouncing the final S. I correct him. Oh, I finally know how to say the name. I've been saying Ulysses. Ulysses. Maybe it's Ulysses. And you don't put the set on the end. Ulysses. Okay. I've been saying Ulysses. So I wasn't that far wrong. Okay. Ulysses. There we go. Oh, now I see it. Now I see it. Right, that's it. You know him? He's a friend. I guess you could say I'm looking for him. It's best if you talk to the boss. They had some dealings together. They were old friends from what I understood. They knew each other back when the boss lived in Paris. Beth points to the left of the counter at a spiral staircase. He's upstairs in the second-hand section. As I climb the stairs, the music from the ground floor gradually fades, and when I reach the upper floor, there's a radically different atmosphere. The upper floor is engulfed in shadow, the lights off, the space lit only by a large window which runs the whole length of the wall. The room is a mess, with boxes of records piled up all over the place, making a striking contrast with the skillfully created trendiness of the ground floor. The final notes of Velvet Underground's Sunday Morning play on the sound system, and they are followed by an English folk track from the same period, probably a cassette tape compilation. At the end of the room, behind a desk overflowing with paperwork, a large red-headed guy sits, or rather sprawls, in his chair, his head back and his t-shirt over his face. There's an empty beer mug in one hand, a tube of aspirin in the other, and a cup of steaming tea cooling on the deck, I nearly said. As I approach the desk nervously and clear my throat. Without moving, Alan growls something that sounds like, "Beth, I told you not today," but punctuated with various obscenities. I'm not Beth, I've come from Patrizia. My companion lifts the corner of the t-shirt, glances at me, lets out a long sigh and sits up in his chair. Even now, on what is apparently a bad day, he gives off a kind of calm force which I find strangely attractive. She's horny as hell. Patrizia? Yeah, it's her who sent me. He asks who I am in a strongly accented French, and the R's rolled. I'm Alice. I'm looking for Ulysses. Ulysses from Paris? Patrizia's ex? You don't need to nitpick. Yes, that Ulysses. Yes, if you like that Ulysses. Alan seems to be having some trouble connecting the various facts of our rambling conversation. And you are? Alice, I just told you, I'm also Ulysses' ex. I'm looking for him. Alan gestures at me to wait. To summarise, you're Ulysses' ex from before he moved to Paris, is that right? I nod. And you're looking for him. What can I do for you? Do you know where he is? Do you know where to find him? Yes. No. Not really. Alan rolls his eyes. Sorry, I just woke up and, well, we were a bit wasted last night. What are you doing this evening? I don't have anything planned at the moment. There's a gig in a pub not far away. I planned on going, Beth and Garrett and I. Can we meet there, 6 p.m? I need a little time to recover from my rough night. Alan puts the t-shirt back over his face, which seems to mean that our conversation is over. When I go back downstairs, Beth signals at me to come over. So he had a rough night. I told you. He told me to join you at the pub this evening. Do you have an address? Oh yeah, the Fox and Sparrow. She notes the address down on a paper for me. So I'll see you there. Unless you want to stay here till closing time, it's up to you. Are we going to have another lesbian experience? She's cute. We've got good music and a few magazines to pass the time if you haven't got anything better to do in the meanwhile. For now, I've been to all the record stores I wanted to see. Rather than mooching around for the rest of the afternoon or tucking myself away in a pub, I could stay here. Good idea, thanks for the offer. It'd give me a chance to catch up with what's new. We've got listening booths, help yourself. I thank Beth and head off in search of a few records to listen to. Can we find that guy's record that he said not many copies exist of? Patricia's uncle, the Fox and Sparrow. No, obviously we don't. The Fox and Sparrow is only 2 streets away from Yard Sale Records, a typical London pub. I will accept that. Kind of romanticised art style look, but I will accept that that is a decent London pub. From outside, I can't see Alan or his 2 employees. I suppose I might be a bit early, or perhaps they're a bit late. I consider waiting for them outside, but decide against it, so I head into the smoky warmth of the pub. The concert has already started. At the end of the room, on a platform, the band is playing a folk tune with a strange pagan sound. I order a drink and move closer to the stage. I allow the singer's incantation to lull me. She is completely immersed in her performance, which is punctuated by a large bearded man who thumps on a big drum with a stick and is accompanied by a few crystalline guitar notes and the low humming of a cello. That sounds nice. Take a moment to consider today's inquiries. I would totally love to be in a pub where someone's playing music like that. They weren't a huge success. Philistines! They sound awesome! At least I have a full name now, Arthur Coleman, and a destination, Scotland. It's not too much, but it's better than nothing. However, I've also managed to get Eddie Black back on my trail. I've still got his number on a paper in my pocket. Then again, maybe I misjudged him. If he really only wants to listen to the record, maybe I could negotiate something with him. Perhaps he has some interesting information to share. Anyway, all I can hope for is that Alan will have some answers for me. At least it seems as though I've managed to shake off Ava for the time being. I forgot about her, but something tells me it's just a temporary reprieve. I'm dragged away from my musings by a hand on my shoulder. This band do a fantastic version of the Birds song. You know the track from the soundtrack of The Wicker Man? I love their interpretation of it. I look up at my companion and realise he must measure at least 6'3", something I hadn't noticed when he was slumped behind his desk. Do you like it? It's not bad, but I admit I probably wouldn't listen to it at home. He gestures that he hadn't heard the volume of the band. I hesitate to take his arm so I can repeat into his ear. Seeing my hesitation, he leans down just as I'm standing up on my tiptoes. In the confusion of the moment, I simply tell him, yes, it's great. Alan gives me a slightly embarrassed smile. Oh, okay. There's a moment of silence before I notice I haven't released his arm. I let go, a little hastily, hoping that I'm not blushing at my own awkwardness. When I take a step back, he puts a hand on my shoulder and says into my ear, "We've managed to find a table. Are you coming? We'll be able to talk more easily." Beth is waiting for us at the table on the other side of the pub, far enough from the stage for the music to be at a reasonable level to talk without yelling. Garrett joins us carrying 3 pints of beer which teetered dangerously between his hands. He slides one over to Alan and another to Beth. "Sorry, I didn't know what you were drinking." I raise my scarcely touched gin and tonic. "I'm all set, thanks." We're going to go over and listen. Can you keep our seats for after the set? Alan agrees with a thumbs up. Garrett and Beth vanish in the crowd and stage, and Alan turns to me. "I'm sorry about earlier. I went to see Herman Dune in concert last night. We had a few drinks after and it got a little out of control. But it doesn't happen as often as, I admit today's been a little difficult. Anyway, as you can see, I'm feeling much better tonight." Alan takes a long swig of his beer. "So have you seen Patricia lately? Is she okay? It's been ages since I was in touch with her. I'm not great with the telephone." "Listen, she seemed pretty well." Oh, that's good. I lived in Paris for 2 years. I went for my last year of uni and then got a job in a record shop in the and that's where I met her. Afterwards, I came back to the UK to start up my own shop and managed to stay in touch. I spend a weekend in Paris at least once a year, and she spends a weekend in London from time to time. That said, when I saw Ulysses come into the shop last month, I was a bit surprised. I bumped into him a few times when he was with Patty. A really great guy, but we lost touch when I moved to London. Do you know where he is now? He told me he was going to keep tracking down his record. According to what Rob told me, his next step will be Scotland. Is that what he told you too? Alan raises a wary eyebrow. Rob? The guy at Strawberry Fields Records. Oh, Stoney, I didn't know Ulysses had gone to see him. But thinking about it, it's not a bad idea. He's been on the scene for such a long time. There was talk of him meeting an Arthur Pullman. Does that mean anything to you? Alan shrugs. No, nothing at all, sorry. Hell, that doesn't help me much. Scotland's pretty big. We're interrupted by Beth, who just sat down next to me on the bench seat. Glasgow. Pardon? Your bloke Ulysses, he said he was heading for Glasgow. Beth crosses her arms, a mischievous smile on her lips. Luckily, there's someone who's still got a memory on the team. Alan sits up in his chair, a glimmer of understanding suddenly on his face. Oh yes, that's right. Now you come to mention it. In fact, I'm pretty sure I gave him the address of my old mate Yorgos. He works in a kind of trendy bar restaurant in the centre of Glasgow, the Archery. Beth lifts her empty glass sadly. Hey, shall we get another drink? Will you help me, Alice? Alan, can you keep the table, please? Shouldn't we wait for Garrett? I think Garrett's occupied. His boyfriend just got here. Beth glances over at the other side of the bar, and there's Garrett stationed in a sage, discreetly holding hands with a young bearded man. Don't move, Alice, I'll go. Beth puts her hand on his shoulder to stop him from rising. No, stay there, please. I need some girl talk with Alice. I'll go over to the bar with Beth. You said Ulysses was in Glasgow? Glasgow? Yeah, that's where he said when he stopped by last time. Sorry for buttonholing you like this, but I wanted to talk to you about something else. Beth glances over my shoulder at our table. I think the boss fancies you. I'm sorry, but I'm not interested. Oh, fine, I understand. Sorry if I'm out of line. Beth continues her pitch regardless, completely oblivious to my misgivings. Alan probably told you that he moved to England to set up his own shop, but actually he left Paris to be with his missus. Unfortunately, they split up a few months ago. It was pretty messy. Since then, he's been going through a rough time. We joke about him not being able to wake up to open the shop, but honestly, he's been in a bad way since the breakup. It really shook him up. When I saw him come downstairs earlier, all showered and perfumed, well anyway, looking very dapper despite the hangover, I thought to myself that perhaps you were here for a reason. Okay. No, I'm not going to think about it. I will think about it if you proposition me, because you look cool as fuck. But no, not him. I get the message. Leave it there. Fine, the ball's in your court, as they say. The overworked barman finally decides to come and take our order. We order, I manage to pay for my round despite Beth's objections, and we all go back to the table. We chat for a while. I go back over to the stage and watch the end of the concert. We order a last drink. Alan tells me funny stories about his life in Paris and London. He tells me about how he met Ulysses. I feel a twinge of sadness. I recall the good years we had together with a strange sense of deja vu, or more like deja vu, like I'd already lived this, but couldn't explain to myself. Alan's a really good guy. I get the feeling that hiding beneath the imposing physique and that Canadian lumberjack exterior, there's a sensitive child. I think if the circumstances allow it, we could easily become friends. I'm defending tooth and nail the cultural validity of Debbie, Harry and Blondie when the bell rings for last orders and closing time. I don't think it'll be long before they kick us out. Shall I walk you back to your hotel? I take a moment to think about my answer. Either Alan's extremely respectful for someone who's supposed to fancy me, or Beth has misread his behaviour. I could take the initiative myself and be more forward. Whenever I decide I can't see myself going back to my hotel on my own, not after the scare I had the night before last or in my conversation with Ava in the buffet car. Does take the initiative mean sleep with him? I don't want to sleep with him. I think take the initiative is, even though I've said I'm not interested, the game wants me to sleep with him. I'm interested in sleeping with Beth or moving on to the next part of the story. I'm sorry. Beth looks cool. I do think it's time to be getting back. Thanks for a great evening. Alan repeats his offer to walk me back and I accept. There you go, that's how he wanted it. And I accept gracefully. That looks very Covent Garden after you've been drinking. That looks very Covent Garden. We say goodbye, go to the pub and head off in different directions. We continue to talk about music on the way, and then when we reach the hotel, which is only a few minutes walk from the pub, we exchange numbers and I promise to stay in touch, Alan and I. I go up to my room after the day's adventures and slip easily into the arms of Morpheus. So no matter how much I say I'm not interested in shagging or in romance, this game really leans into, it was lovely and I'm going to keep in touch. Game does not respect my lack of interest in this guy. When I wake the next morning, I have a very clear plan of battle. I think I've collected all the information I can here in London. I've got a name, Arthur Pullman, and a place, Glasgow. Even Alan, who already knew Ulysses and who put him up for a few days, wasn't able to be more precise. All I can do is jump on a train and cross my fingers that the trail doesn't dry up. And if this Arthur Pullman is truly a specialist in that record, perhaps he'll be able to give me some answers. First, I jump into the shower and then I choose some fresh clothes. Something tells me that there's a strong possibility that Ava and her henchmen are watching the stations. So I choose an outfit as different as possible from the one I was wearing when I arrived in London to reduce the risk of being recognised if needed. In the same vein, I decide to put my hair up, which I rarely do usually. When I'm emptying my pockets, I find Didier's number. I hadn't really intended to use it when he gave it to me, but I think to myself that it might still be worth considering it. On one hand, I could decide to play safe and not call. If I count his case as closed, it's unlikely that Eddie will be able to track me down to Glasgow. On the other hand, maybe I'm missing some very interesting information which he might want to share in exchange for listening to the record. But I am prepared to take the risk he might steal it from me. Or worse, perhaps he's going to be watched by Ava and her organisation. What to do? I'm interested in letting the guy listen to the record. I decide it's worth running the risk. I grab the handset and dial the number that Didier gave me. He tells me that Jean-Luc had jumped on the first train and that he'd arrived in London last night. That yes, he's just next to him and yes, he can put him on the phone. Eddie thanks me 5 times for having called before we managed to arrange a meeting. I would have liked to suggest a pub near the hotel, but neither he nor I know the area well enough to establish a reliable meeting point. I end up giving him the address of the hotel and ask him to meet me in the lobby in half an hour. When I reach the hotel reception, Eddie's already there waiting for me, throwing feverish glances at the entrance and the stairs. His face lights up with relief when he sees me. "Oh, thank you for agreeing to meet me, miss." Despite myself, I let out a sigh. "Right, now that you're here, I'm listening. Tell me what it is you want from me." Recognizing my good intentions, Eddie relaxes a bit. "All I ask is that you let me tell you my story. After that, if you still don't want to let me listen to the record, I promise I'll leave you in peace." There's a little seating area in the hotel lobby. I gesture to him to take a seat. We sit down together. I'm listening. Eddie is silent for a while. I guess that he's prepared and rehearsed what he wanted to say so much, and now that the time has come, he can't find the words. "I'm sorry, I've been chasing that record for years, and now when I'm so close." He glances at me, his face profoundly weary, yet gentle. I can't imagine how I could have thought this guy was a threat. He has followed you from city to city, and now from country to country. You know, as we get older, we tend to collect regrets, missed opportunities. I'm a musician, singer and guitarist. I had some success in the 70s, especially in France. My career was taking off. I had a first hit playing on the radio. A big heart in a black leather jacket. Does that sound familiar? I shake my head. I've never heard of it. Grand Coeur d'un Bouzonneau. Oh, that doesn't surprise me. I missed my chance and I blame myself so much. Barclay had signed me for 3 45s with an option on an album. And I had the chance of my life. Johnny Halliday was looking for a supporting act for his Winter 78 tour. What happened? Eddie lets out a sigh. An affair of the heart, what else? Her name was Monique and she was the most beautiful girl in high school. Everyone had a crush on her, but it was me who got her. We moved in together at 18 years old. She finished a hairdressing course and got hired at a little salon in the 11th arrondissement near the Bastille. Me, I quit my studies to devote myself to my music. It caused some tension between us. I was a night owl. I played the clubs 4 or 5 nights a week, and she came home from work exhausted. By the end, every time we were together, we would end up screaming at each other. When I got the contract for the tour, I was so stoked. Johnny's opening act. It was a childhood dream that was coming true. But well, she didn't see things the same way. 3 months alone without me, it was too much for her. She told me, I'm warning you, if you do that tour, I'll leave you. We were 23 years old. We were still children. I caved. I loved her. What happened after that? I thought I'd have other opportunities, that it wasn't so bad. I had a recording contract with a big French label after all. It was cool, right? Big mistake. Barclay released my 345s, then they didn't renew my contract. Ironically, the last single I bought up had a side A, Monique, and a side B, My Eyes Cry For You. In the end, I found myself as a guitarist in a band that played wedding and neighbourhood parties. I did that for 15 years and then I was too old, too has-been even for that. Anyway, people didn't want bands for their weddings anymore. They wanted disc jockeys. And Monique? We got married in 79 and divorced in 82. When I heard about the record, I said to myself, here's your chance. If I can go back to the past and decide to do that tour, perhaps I'd still be with Monique today. And he leans back in his chair. Anyway, that's my story. All I ask is that you let me listen to the record. If everything works out the way I hope, I promise you won't ever hear from me again. Eddie stops talking and waits anxiously for my response. His anguish is almost palpable, as if his life hangs on my lips. After his plea, so touching and sincere, I have the heart to refuse what he's asking. There's something bothering me, though. Let's say I accept. I've got a flower for that. Let's say I accept. How do you plan to listen to the record? Eddie's face lights up with a big smile. Oh, I've got my tapas. He bends over, grabs and proudly brandishes a little tartan case where he put down next to the couch. I assume it contains a little portable record player. Have you checked it out? Have you checked out of your room? I just need 5 minutes alone. Wait, I haven't said yes yet. If you don't mind, I've got a few questions for you. Eddie gives an anxious nod. You say you've been searching for the record for years. What do you know about it? Oh, I think you know at least as much as I do. The first I heard about it was at the end of the 90s, pretty much by chance. There aren't that many people who know about that recording. It seemed a bit crazy to me, of course, a record that lets you change the past, so I dug a little. I didn't have anything better to do after all. For a long time I found nothing, but I started to notice that I was seeing the same faces everywhere when there was a rumour that the record was here or there. What do you mean the same faces? Most of them were pretty okay, music fans, collectors, or dudes a bit off their heads, or I dropped some acid and met God types. And then there's the others. The others? I'm surprised you haven't bumped into them yet. A kind of secret society looking for the record. They're called something like Iron Sky Rose. Are you sure you haven't heard about them? Iron Sky Rose. Seeing my skepticism, Eddie adds, something like that. I've never seen it written down. There's a young woman in charge. Well, a young woman. In fact, I don't really know how old she is. Ava? That's Ava. Them. They really freak me out. Well, you know what I'm talking about because you've already met them. And I'll bet you haven't heard the last of them. I got a flower for that. I've got to admit they really scare me. You're right to be afraid. Those guys, they're not very friendly, especially that woman, Ava. From what I get, it's her dad that started their sect, or their organisation, or whatever it is. Do you know why they want the record? Eddie shrugs. I guess they want the same thing that I want. To change the past? That's it. At least I'm guessing. Honestly, I don't really know. Like I told you, I'm sure you know more than I do. One last thing. How did you know that Ulysses had sent the record to me? Well, like you, I did a bit of digging. When he arrives in Saint Ouen and I started asking questions, it got around. I went to see him myself several times to try and talk him into letting me listen to it. Then one day, he left Paris. I asked Patty where he'd gone, but she didn't want to tell me. Anyway, I followed the trail in the other direction and I learned that he came from Bordeaux. And next, there I realised he'd sent it to you. Was it you who turned over my apartment? Well, no way, I'd never do that. I'm a decent man, I am. And you know, if I managed to find you all on my own, don't think that an organised gang like the Iron Sky Rose might manage it too. I have to agree that's probably exactly what happened. Well, that's it. If you don't have any more questions... Eddie looks at me doubtfully, his right foot tapping on the ground in a fast, regular beat. After all his good faith, a refusal to let him listen to the record would be difficult to justify. Then again, Ulysses himself refused him several times. Perhaps he had a good reason. I have to make a decision and stick to it. I want to let him listen to it. I want to, as an outsider, see somebody else listen to it and see what happens. Mind you, she's probably going to step out the room and leave him alone. But if people are stealing the record, you don't step out, you don't let it leave your sight. All right. After everything you've told me, I don't see any reason not to let you listen to the record. Really? Yes, really. Eddie grabs his tappers and stands and waits restlessly for me to do likewise. Follow me. We climb the stairs to the second floor where my room is. I open the door for him and signal him to go in. Will you wait out here? I think it's best if I do this alone if it's cool with you. I hesitate for a moment and then I say to myself there's no real risk of him escaping the record from the second floor with only one door to get in and out of the room. All right. I'll give you 5 minutes. Eddie pauses as if he had wanted to hug me but had changed his mind. He simply says, "You're a saint, miss. I'll pay you back." I don't know how, but I promise you I will. Then he goes into the room and the door shuts behind him. I lean against the wall across the hallway, not taking my eyes off the door. After a few moments, a strange sensation overwhelms me, as though I had a weight on my chest. Suddenly, the walls of the corridor seem to dislocate imperceptibly and the air lights up with iridescent particles. Then nothing. Has he ceased to exist? And I open the door of the room. Eddie's headphones lie on the floor, still plugged in. If he was listening in headphones, you could have been in the room. You should have been in the room. The cackling of the tone arm stuck in the central groove is the only sign of light in the silence of the empty hotel room. If he was listening with headphones, you should have been in the room, because then you could have watched him listen to it. Why wouldn't you watch? If he wasn't, then you leave the room so you're not listening to it a second time at a time you're not ready. You should have been in there. You could have sat behind him so you weren't staring directly into his face, but you should have watched him listen to it. You could have got so much more information by watching him listen to it. Okay. So, we're halfway through. We can come back next week. Yeah, we've done a decent enough length stream. We can come back next Saturday and do the second half. I am really into this. This is a good story. It's a shame we've only had one music thing where you make the decision of where the lyrics go and the song changes. I wish that happened once each chapter. It only happened in the prologue. I hope that comes back at least. I hope we get to do that again. But, yeah, we're back next week. I enjoyed that. Yay. This is really interesting. I'm liking it. I hope you have enjoyed it. My throat is a little bit rough, but it's not proper sore. I will get something else to drink. There's Rogue. I've been Bubble Mantequilla, and I will be back tomorrow for Christmas Animal Crossing, and we will be back next Saturday for the other half of this, and I can't wait. I'm really invested. I really want to know what this story is, where this story goes. And I will not be nitpicking Glasgow because I've never been there. It can be as inaccurate as it wants to. Yay! Goodbye.